Hello everyone, today I'm here to do favorites books of the first quarter of 2018. I know Regan does this every single quarter of the year, and I love watching her videos. She just basically tells you what books she's read in those past 3 months and shares with you her top favorite. And I love watching those, and I think it's just a great way for you to share with your viewers what you've been reading in these past 3 months, because I know it gets very, very daunting at the end of the year being like, I read 100 books, let me show you all of them in my readings. It's like, holy crap, that's a lot. So I thought I would, borrow that idea from her. I hope that's okay, Regan. And do the same thing, where basically I'm going to show you what books I read for the months of January, February, and March, pretty much the first quarter of 2018. Also sharing with you my ratings of those books, and at the end telling you my top 5 books that I've read so far this year. So let's just dive in, because I read 29 books already this year. 29! Who am I? I don't even know. So starting off January, I read 9 books. The first book I read this year was Unearthed by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner, and I gave this book a 3 out of 5. I read Meet Cute, which is by a myriad of authors. It's edited by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is a book of short stories about meet cutes pretty much. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. Your Head by Neil Schusterman, which I gave a whopping 5 out of 5 to. Read this book. Music Shop by Rachel Joyce, which I gave a 4 out of 5 to. Life Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, which I gave 4.25, still unsure, out of 5 stars. Love, Hate, and Other Filters by Samira Ahmed, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 to. Bordeaux by Robin Sloan, which I gave 2.75, 3 out of 5. Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5. And lastly, for January, I read Still Me by Jojo Moyes, which I gave a 4 out of 5 to. Moving into February, I also read 9 books. I think I've read 9 books every single month. I think that's just like my regular number. Either I'd say average between 8 to 10. Lately it's been 9, so I guess we're just gonna say I read 9 books a month. The first book I read in February was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, which I gave a 5 out of 5 to. Hermes by Christina Lauren, which I gave a 4 out of 5. Wedding Date by Jasmine Guarini, which I gave a 3 out of 5 to. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, which I gave a 5 out of 5 to. Another read this book. American Panda by Gloria Chow, which I gave a 3 out of 5 to. Sides of a Heart, another YA anthology. This one's all about love triangles. This is edited by Natalie C. Parker. I gave this a 2 out of 5. Definitely one of my least favorite books of the year so far. Broken Hearts by Kami Garcia, also a 2 out of 5 too. Bells by Danielle Clayton, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5. And lastly, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which I gave a 5 out of 5 too. This one, seriously, please read this book. And lastly, for March, you guessed it, I read 9 books. So those books are Not That I Could Tell by Jessica Strasser, which I gave a 3 out of 5. Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin, which I gave a 3.75 out of 5. I know, we're getting super technical. The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, which I gave a 4 out of 5 too. Okay, here's an interesting one. On my wrap up, I totally forgot to mention this book. So yeah, I said I read 8 books, my wrap up. I really read 9. Totally forgot I read this. And that is Simon vs. Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, which I gave a 4 out of 5. This is the month of the 4 out of 5s. Like every book I feel like I've read in March was 4 out of 5. To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo, I gave a 4.5 out of 5 to. Still technically within the 4 bracket. List by Sarah Holland, which I gave a 3 out of 5. Prize Me by Sophie Kinsella, which I gave a 4 out of 5. And Jane Young, which I gave 4.75, really close to 5 out of 5 stars too. Lastly, the last book I read this quarter was Obsidio by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, which I gave a 5 out of 5 to. Amazing. Now I'm going to share with you the 5 books that were my favorite that I read in the quarter, which it so happens to be that I actually have 5 stars, which you can already clearly see by my ratings, but I'm also going to share with you a few honorable mentions, because why not? We can, do that. Honorable mentions that I want to talk to you guys about that are kind of outside my top 5, and I read them all in March, surprisingly. One is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. I really enjoyed this book. I was very pleasantly surprised by it. It's basically about a bunch of witches, and they get killed, and every summer they come back and inhabit a teenage girl's body and lure boys into the water and drown them. Very amazing, very atmospheric. Definitely wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. So in a Focus Pocus or Practical Magic, read this book. So amazing. I haven't heard a ton of people talk about it, and it definitely needs to be read because I loved it. Next one is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. Like I said, I give this one a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. Much like in The Wicked Deep, these are both YA fantasy standalones, which I love so much that they're standalones, but this one is kind of a dark retelling of The Little Mermaid. Highly recommend it. It's about sirens and a prince falling in love and kind of dark. I really liked it, and a lot of people are talking about it. My last honorable mention before I get into my top 5 is Young Jane Young. Another one I wasn't expecting to love as much as I did. I fell in love with this book. Basically, this is about like it's about a woman that has an affair with a congressman, and he gets off scot-free, and she really has to deal with the aftermath. And it's kind of like a take on the Monica Lewinsky story that happened with Bill Clinton a long time ago. But it's very refreshing, very fun. Loved it so much. I've heard no one talk about this book, and it needs to be talked about because it was so good. So now for my top 5 that I read for this quarter. You can already tell by the ratings, but you don't know how I'm gonna rate those 5 out of 5, do you? Here we go. Starting with number 5, I had The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is the first book in a YA fantasy series. I really enjoyed it. It's a great dark book about fae. Just know that the fae are really cruel. They're really mean. So all the books that I've read about fae, they're all been kind of mean and just horrible people, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a dark, gritty book, and I liked it. I think it does live up to the hype. A lot of people don't like it, but I think each book is kind of individual. You may like it, you may not. So I really enjoyed it. And I have Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I loved this book. This is an adult literary fiction novel about a main character, Eleanor, who's very quirky and not very good socially, and you just read about her blossoming, and it's just a beautiful and warm story. I love this book. It's definitely got a lot of hype. Not on BookTube. Not everybody's talking about this on BookTube. It's more like on Goodreads and Amazon and just kind of on the internet, but not on BookTube. But everyone should read this book. It's such a heartwarming and beautiful story that I fell in love with. Definitely one of my favorites of the entire year, hands down. Next up, we have Obsidio by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This is the 3rd and final book in the Illuminae files. I loved it. This might be my favorite out of the series. I just reviewed the whole series. I thought it was amazing. I think what helped me even love it more was I listened to the audiobook with this series, with this particular book, which I highly recommend. The audiobook is amazing, but I love this book. The only qualm I had with it was I didn't love the ending, but overall, I love the journey, and everything about this book was just phenomenal. Coming in at number 2 is Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. This is the 2nd book in the Arc of a Scythe series, and I love this series. So Scythe has recently been getting a lot of hype lately. It came out last year, and I read it last year, and I fell in love with it. So now a lot of people are starting to jump on the bandwagon and read it right now, and I'm so happy because it's such an amazing series. It's such a good book. This has a couple characters that become apprentices to scythes, and we have a world where we've solved everything but death, so we have scythes that kind of control the population, and it's such a thought-provoking book, such a thrill ride. It's amazing. I'd say even if you're not a fan of YA fantasy books or dystopian books, I would highly recommend this series still. Neil Shusterman has a way with writing. He's written so many other books before, but this book, like I said, has been getting a ton of buzz and hype, and I would stand fully behind it. I love this series completely. This is definitely going to be like in my top 5s probably when the year ends as well, because I just loved it so much. My favorite book that I've read of the year so far, even though if I'm honest with you, I don't see anything knocking this off of the number 1 spot for the entire year. You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw out and say that, is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I finally read this book this year, and what everyone's been saying has been 100% right. This is an adult historical fiction book. That's right, I read a historical fiction book. Who am I? I don't know. World War II, and we're in France. We follow 2 sisters that are leading very different lives within this war, and it's just so phenomenal. Yes, it is a huge book, but you will fly through it, and it'll make you freaking cry like nobody's business, but oh, so good. So good. So there you have it. Those are all the books that I've read this year so far. I'm having a great reading year, and I'm very happy with my progress. I've read a lot of books that I have loved this year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back in another 3 months to do another one just like this one. I really had a lot of fun. This is going to be fun progress marker. I'm all about that. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.